This story, it happened in my hometown a long, long time ago, maybe 300 years back. And there's a place there, a field, that still carries its name, Eahparašfielbma. In the old language, that translates to a single chilling phrase, the field of the spirit child. The locals say, if you go there at night when everything is quiet and the air is still, you can sometimes hear a cry. It echoes from the forest, soft and so lonely. And it sounds far too human to be any animal. Our story begins with two men, Ante and Viera. They were good friends, fishermen. They'd spent most of their lives out on the river, just paddling through the morning mist, trading their catch to get by.
One summer, they got to thinking about an old friend they hadn't seen in a while. Her name was Anne. She used to be so full of life, always laughing, always the first to run ahead. But something had changed in her a few years back. She'd grown quiet, withdrawn. It was like something deep inside her had just broken.
Well, they saw her by the river one day and called her over. They just talked for a bit, laughed the way they used to. And they asked her, "Why don't you join us for one more trip, for old time's sake?" You could see her hesitate. A shadow just passed right over her face. But then, she nodded. Maybe she wanted to feel alive again too. So the day came. They packed up and started paddling up the river. The air was cool and the sky was just burning orange as the sun sank behind the hills. For a little while, everything was so peaceful. The only thing that broke the silence was the sound of their paddles dipping into the dark water. They made it to the meadow and lit a fire, started grilling some fish. The flames crackled and sent these little sparks up into the darkness. And the stars, they shimmered like cold glass above them. Everything felt so calm, so normal, safe. And then, the scream. It was sharp and high. It just cut through the night like a knife. It didn't sound like any animal they knew. It sounded human. They all froze, just listening. The entire forest fell completely silent around them. Auntie, he tried to laugh it off, but his voice was a little tight. He said, "Oh, it must be a fox." But then another scream ripped through the air. This time, it was closer, more desperate. And in the firelight, they could see Anne's face turn completely white. The fear was real now. They could all feel it in the air. And when the third scream came, so close it sounded like it was right at the edge of the trees, Anne just dropped everything. She bolted for the boat, didn't even look back. The men, they grabbed what they could and followed, shoving the boat out into that dark, cold river. As they paddled away, they could still hear it, that screaming from the forest moving right alongside them through the trees. Now, this was a sound from our local folklore, the sound of an Eahparaš, the wandering spirit of an abandoned child, left to die in the wilderness without a name, without a baptism. The sound followed them for what felt like an eternity, always near, but it never touched the river. Because everyone who grows up here knows the old rule. Running water is a barrier, a kind of holy protection. And Eahparaš never, ever crosses water. Viera, he was tired of the chase, and his fear was turning into anger at whatever was tormenting them. He'd finally had enough. He turned the boat, pointing it toward that dark riverbank. He shouted into the darkness, his voice echoing over the water. "Show yourself." And from the bushes, a small figure stepped out into a patch of moonlight. It was a little girl, maybe 4 years old. She was pale and so still, just watching them with these empty, hollow eyes. Beer's voice trembled when he spoke again. "We didn't hurt you," he shouted across the water. "We're not the ones who left you to die out here. Go find them instead." But the child, she didn't move. She just stared at their boat, at Anne. And then, suddenly, there was a crack. A sharp, completely unnatural sound. Anne's neck twisted violently, her head turning almost all the way around, and she fell, silently, into the water before either of them could even move. Auntie and Viera pulled her body back into the boat, but she was already gone. When they looked up to the riverbank, the child had vanished. The forest had gone silent again. The only sound left was the water, lapping against the side of the boat. They paddled home in this heavy, horrified silence. When they finally had to tell Anne's family what had happened, her mother just wept. And then, through her tears, she told them the truth. Years ago, Anne had fallen in love, but the man abandoned her when he found out she was pregnant. And in those times, for an unmarried woman, that was a terrible disgrace. So when the baby was born, Anne, completely desperate and all alone, carried her newborn deep into the woods, and she left it there to die. After that day, the light just went out of her. She was never, ever the same. You see, the story of the Eahparaš, it isn't just a ghost story. It's a kind of cautionary tale, born from the harsh realities of the past. That night by the river, the spirit she had abandoned finally came back for her. The child who never got a name, never a blessing, never even a mother's touch, had finally found its mother. Anne was buried by the river, and that place is still called Eahparašfielbma to this day. They say the child's spirit stopped wandering after that night, that its purpose was fulfilled. But sometimes, on those quiet evenings, when the mist rolls in off the water and the wind is still, you can still hear it, that faint cry coming from the forest. It's a reminder, and it's a warning. And if you're ever out there and you hear that sound, don't go looking for it, because some cries just aren't meant to be answered. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What stories haunt the places we live? If this story stayed with you, if you want to explore more of these forgotten histories with us, please subscribe. We have so many more tales to share, and we would love for you to join us again.